Chamonix, France. Against the startlingly clear blue sky, the snowy peaks of the Alps were a jagged line of majesty. Thousands of feet below, farms seemed scattered like an impatient toddler's toys. It could be her last sight on Earth. Amy Cahill looked down at her feet, just an inch away from the edge. She felt the cold wind against her face, and she closed her eyes for just 1 second to gather her nerve. Then she dove off the side of the mountain. The roar of the wind filled her ears, and her stomach dropped. The breath seemed ripped from her body, but she found enough to scream. Every nerve in her body was alive and tingling. She hurtled through the air, conscious that any sudden move could endanger her flight and send her crashing into the face of the mountain. There was nothing to grab onto, nothing to break her fall. Just air. Just thin air, and she was diving through it in a bright orange wingsuit that made her look like a flying squirrel. Turning her head slightly, she caught sight of her brother. Behind the windscreen on his helmet, Dan was grinning. Her 13-year-old brother definitely enjoyed adrenaline. She angled her body to slow her descent. She was hurtling down at a velocity of about 80 miles an hour, arms bent, shoulders strong, legs straight out behind her. In less than a minute, she had to curve around the mountain. This was the tricky part. Flying consisted of thousands of micro adjustments. Birds made it look easy. She took a breath and let it out slowly, staying loose. She didn't want to do what skydivers call potato chipping, keeping your muscles so tense that your body shudders its way through the descent. Any bit of instability could lead to an overcorrection. She was experienced at this sport by now, but if you weren't aware at all of times of the things that could go wrong, you were stupid. She remembered the words of her instructor. Keep your airflow clean. Get comfortable in that suit. Wear it like your PJs. Don't concentrate on the valley floor. Your speed can fool you into thinking you're higher than you are. You don't want to end up like Jim on the mountainside. She curved around the cliff face. Her ears were filled with the rush and roar of wind and the flapping of the edges of her suit. The valley spread out below her, snowy and still. She spotted the bright orange windsock that marked the meadow landing site. It had been cleared of snow. It felt amazing to know that she could hit that tiny mark and land. Gauging her speed and direction, she angled to the right. She hated for the ride to end. Something caught the sun over her right shoulder. A helicopter. Amy felt a jolt of alarm that she immediately tamped down. Probably some billionaire heading to a ski chalet. Nothing to worry about. The helicopter didn't turn. It tilted, the sun glaring off the bubble of the windshield. Didn't it see them? Amy angled away again. Dan was behind her. She wished she could see him, but turning that much would send her into a spin. She could feel the percussion of the whirling blades in her chest. The helicopter was awfully close. Well, close. Too close. Still coming fast, angling above her now. "Dan!" she screamed, but of course he couldn't hear her over the wind in his ears. She had only seconds now before she had to pull her pilot chute. Then she would be a sitting duck, vulnerable, tethered to the canopy. She saw someone leap out of the open door of the copter. He was free-falling just yards away. This wasn't right. He was angling his body to come close to her. Panic burst through her. She had to engage the canopy. At least she could control her descent, aim away from the attacker. The chute deployed, and she felt the jerk and drag. The attacker was behind her now. He must have pulled his canopy too. They would land in the same meadow, and by the looks of that black helicopter, it would too. This didn't make sense. It had to be an attack. She made a perfect landing, barely kissing the ground. She fumbled with her harness, making sure that Dan was safely down as she ripped it off and threw off her helmet. She raced toward the intruder, planning the attack as she ran. She knew from experience that thugs usually didn't expect a 16-year-old girl to be a warrior. She needed to kick first, while he was still attached to his chute. Hampered by her wingsuit, Amy would never be able to get off a perfect blow to the windpipe, but that didn't mean she wouldn't try. She didn't need to go airborne. She rotated, gathering speed, lifted off, her booted feet together, and aiming for the vulnerable space she could see. Neck. While he shouted and dodged. How weird. It sounded like he was yelling, "Amy!" Amy clumsily connected with her attacker's shoulder, and the impact spun her off balance. She fell on top of him and raised a fist. A strong hand gripped her wrist, blocking her. Amy stared into familiar, friendly eyes. "Don't kill me, dude," her cousin Hamilton Holt said. "I come in peace." Dan raced awkwardly toward his sister in his wingsuit, laughing and trying to scramble out of it as he ran. "That was awesome," he shouted over the noise of the copter as it banked and circled. "I always wondered if you could bring Ham down." Amy struggled to her feet. "Ham? Are you okay? Are you crazy? I almost got killed. Who surprises someone when they're base jumping?" "I thought you'd recognize me," Ham said, still lying on the ground. "In midair? When you're wearing goggles and a helmet, while I'm falling 80 miles an hour." "I guess we didn't think it through," Ham said sheepishly. "We just wanted to be sure we could talk to you. You're not that easy to track down, you know." Dan felt a spurt of pleasure. He missed his friends. If Hamilton was here, Jonah couldn't be far behind. His peeps were here. For the past 6 months, ever since they'd saved the world from World War III, and walked away from the Cahill family, Dan and Amy had been in happy exile. They'd changed their last name to Swift, the birds that, according to legend, never land, and set their feet on a new, aimless path. With Grace's house in Ireland as their base, they'd wandered from country to country, to beaches and gardens and parks and cities, absorbing and looking. It had been 6 months of extended chill time, and it had been fun. Dan had felt the buzz of anxiety in his head slowly drain like a battery. He was the only one in the world who knew the formula for the Cahill family serum, the source of the Cahill's power, a substance that had the potential to make someone the most powerful person in the world if it didn't kill him or her first. That knowledge had haunted him once. Now he still carried it, but it didn't weigh him down any longer. His hyper-organized sister had planned their wanderings. She hired tutors and guides so that they kept up with schoolwork. They didn't want to be hermits. They checked in with their Uncle Fisk and their friends and family through video chats, but they didn't want to get involved with Cahill family business. Amy frowned. "What's wrong? Is everyone okay?" she asked. "Fisk, everyone's okay," Hamilton said quickly, "but something happened." The helicopter landed, its blades whirring. Ian scrambled out and hesitated, his hand on the door. Dan felt his heart sink. This wasn't going to be pals hanging out. This was official Cahill family business. He exchanged a glance with his sister. They'd always been able to say a lot without talking. He felt the same reluctance in her, the same dread. Whatever was aboard that copter, it was bad news, and they were both reluctant to greet it. They knew exactly how seriously bad Cahill news could get. I'll let Ian fill you in," Hamilton said. "Come on."